Hey everybody, Brad Stevens here. Hope you are doing well. If you're catching this live, you were up early. It's 6:30 a.m. I'm knocking this one out early this morning before getting a chance to actually head out to Colorado. It's going to be my first time on a plane since COVID hit. Looking forward to engaging. So, sorry, I just got a notice there. I thought maybe my Facebook Live. But really enjoy these mentor sessions and sharing. I'm the founder and CEO of Outsource Access. We provide vetted and trained virtual assistants for business owners and entrepreneurs all over the world. We have had quite the journey over the last 20 months or so. We've grown from 0 to 265 employees. So I've had a chance to get a great cross-section of not only inside of building my own business, and I've been a 20-year entrepreneur and built businesses in a number of different industries, product-based businesses, service-based businesses, all have been international in nature. But then the journey of building this company, and then also the types of clients we work with is across the board in every industry who are engaging and embracing the world of outsourcing and virtual assistants, folding it into their companies. So I've had a chance to see a lot of different types of industries and how this folds in. And so it doesn't matter. Industry, background, I've seen it apply, across the board. So hopefully to give some insights, particularly some of the questions that are sent to me that speak to that experience and knowledge base, and hopefully be able to help out in your journey going forward. And if you ever want to check out what we're about, you can go to outsourceaccess.com, have a bunch of free guides and information and tools around this whole world of outsourcing, and I'll share some links as well. Now, to apologize, I'm a little congested here this morning, but looking forward to diving in and getting these questions answered. So the first submitter is Allison Koyanagi. Question: how do I hire and train someone to take over my day-to-day duties? Background: digital marketing agency. I work a lot in my business and feel like it prevents me from doing or focusing on things I love to. Also want to start a few more businesses and focus on hobbies as well. How do I hire and train someone to replace me in the day-to-day operations? And most of all, how do I get them to be as motivated and invested as I am as the owner? Would you recommend I give them some equity in the business so they feel like they are contributing? Thank you for your help and expertise. So Allison, first thing always on this is a lot of people say that they want to transition and want to get out of the business in the day-to-day, and it's tough to break that cycle, particularly if you've been doing it for a long time. And just frankly, just from a chemistry standpoint, a lot of entrepreneurs are in that fight or flight stage quite a lot. And there's actually chemical, cortisol, which you may be familiar with, that kind of runs through the body, and it can frankly kind of get you wired to maintain sort of that on the reins, holding all the time, and it's tough to break away and feel a sense of peace and delegation. So number one thing before you can even start this path is you got to get your mindset right that you are going to do this, that you're committed to it, and take some time to really calculate the value of really what it means, aside from just that that you need to do it to grow. What's an ROI? What will it mean in terms of dollars and cents? If you can really get things off of your plate, what does that mean for you? Where could you reallocate your time to deliver the highest, value for the company? And does it mean closing, if you could get 10 hours, 15 hours, whatever task you're talking about getting off your day-to-day activities, if you could land one additional client, what does that mean, right? Does that mean an extra 2,000, 5,000, 10,000? I don't know what you charge per month. But if you reallocate, that will get you excited about wanting to actually make this transition. Because if you can see that it could translate into hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, if you truly, now this requires you to kind of double down and really make sure you're focusing on those higher value activities, but it'll really kind of drive you forward and make that commitment. As far as bringing someone in that's going to be working with you, one thing I can share that we're having to match people up with VAs and business owners all over the world all the time is set a high bar for the right person so that you can trust and have confidence. If you're going to hand this off, a lot of people, they struggle giving things off to begin with. Most entrepreneurs do. And when someone fails, they lose confidence and then they are hesitant about doing it again. So use tools and assessments to vet the right kind of person that you're going to bring on, aside from looking at a resume and a gut feel from a conversation. Use whether it's Colby tests, whether it's DISC profile tests. We're actually using one called Culture Index now. And with our VAs, actually, we have a battery of about 15 tests, and I'll actually share a list of the ones that we use. A bunch of them are free. They do IQ testing, emotional intelligence testing. Just really do your homework. It's people can be misleading sometimes in what they say that they can do and what they're capable of, can talk a good game, but really what's behind the DNA of their behavior. So really highly recommend that. So as I've shared, there's a lot of background when you're looking to do this. You got to get mindset right. You've got to get the right person so that you can have confidence of actually transitioning it and be successful longer term. And then when you're actually ready to make that transition, once you've done those two things, is document your processes. You've got to make it easy, set them up for success. A lot of times I see business owners and entrepreneurs fail at this because they do not set people up for success. They do a half-hearted effort of getting processes out, and they just want them to figure it out and wrap their hands around it. Well, you want someone that's a good deductive thinker and can make conclusions and be proactive and make sure you encourage them to do that when you bring them on. Is look, I'm going to train you, but ultimately I want you to shift into sort of being a proactive thinker and taking next steps and defaulting to action. But on the front end, do a good job of getting their hands on the wheel with the key processes. I know Shawn talks a lot about Trainual, which is a fantastic tool. We use it a ton. We're actually looking at maybe rolling it out across our organization. Process Street, process.st is another one. Or absent of those two, just using screencasting like screencast-o-matic.com and Google Docs to capture your screen, explain what you're wanting, and getting that person successful to get their hands on the wheel. Very, very important. In our business, that's one of the first things that we do is take the top 10 to 15 tasks off of our client's plate, and we are fanatical about them documenting them appropriately. So do a good job of setting them up for success. Next question submitted by Heather Brockman. Is there an average training period I should be working towards with my new hires? Description and business background. We currently have our on-the-job training set at 80 hours to cover all aspects of the company, the processes, the vehicles, and this is all followed by a test to make sure they understand and can implement everything. It is paid training, of course, but for groomers who are used to making commission, it is a drastic change, $100 a day for paid training. This may have cost me a new hire. I'm now wondering, do I keep the training thorough and a mandatory 80 hours so it is the same across the board, or do we tweak it for each person? So first, to answer, let me just say you're doing a lot of things, correct. And I'll speak to this in a second. I don't think there's really an average training period, for any business. It depends on what you're doing, the complexity of it, for people that are stepping into certain roles. But I love what you're doing by making it paid. Because you're at least showing and applying value to it. And if they're the right person, the right fit, even though they're not making the money that they normally would, they'll see the value in it if they're buying into you and your company, making it thorough and having a test at the end of it as well to make sure that they're, going to be a good fit. And, it may feel like you're costing yourself some hires, but, I did this exact same, when I was reading this, it's, similar to some things I did in my past company and current company. And particularly when I was managing and training kind of our salespeople in my last business, did the exact same thing. Had them read a book or audio that before they even came in their first day, what great salespeople do, the power of selling through story and emotion. And then we did screencast recordings on all of the workflows in the company that they had to sit down and watch those videos and take tests and score. And product knowledge. They had to get 100% on product knowledge because they can't even work on soft skills until we know that they had the product knowledge in our business in the last company. So I saw that work. It really helped to set the right kind of base for our salespeople to be successful, and highly recommend that you continue kind of what you're doing. It helped us be efficient and helped us see if it's a right fit or not. And I think it's doing that for you. And it seems like you're putting some rigor in that process. As far as losing good hires, one thing, and I don't know what the assessment is that you're doing or how detailed it is. If it have some preliminary elements to it that are very basic. If the right person is a right fit, they're going to know those things. One thing is maybe having a preliminary test to see if they meet certain criteria, and then for more advanced people is have another assessment that is maybe not just focused on basic skills, but some more advanced skills. So when we were doing this, we kind of migrated and had two different assessments. We would have some that were for more advanced individuals so that, we weren't, quote, boring them or asking them questions that weren't, not applicable for their skill set and their experience. But I'll also ask, what other assessments that you are applying as well, aside from just raw skills and their ability on the grooming side is, are you doing any other soft skill personality tests, Colby tests, disc profile testing, culture index? I just cannot say enough about how critical those are in figuring out the soft skill side aside from the technical skill side, because that's one thing I would add to your testing if you're not doing it, to make sure that that is a fit. An Enneagram is another great one as well. And there's a lot of these that are free tests that are out there. And I'll share a link in the chat here on some of those tools. Next submitter is Edward Morgan. E-commerce question. I've never tried text marketing. What text marketing platform would you recommend? Are you able to measure the amount of conversions gleaned from text marketing? So Morgan, and I'm not personally sort of running text marketing types of initiatives for our company. I got our team doing it. I know we do a ton for clients, and I can speak to some experiences there, and some that we're doing directly that I kind of know what we're doing, but I don't know a lot of the deep and gritty. It's actually something, one of our largest clients we have over 50 VAs with now. And part of what one of the teams is doing for him, they're in the financial services industry, is managing all their text marketing. So I'm going to find out specifically which tool that they're using, if it's something different than the ones I'm going to mention here, and I'll post it here later, or ping me in this post and remind me if you don't see it. But Twilio is one that we're using consistently that integrates with our Infusionsoft platform that we've been pleased with. And there's another one called Textedly that I haven't used directly, but I've heard really good things about. Textedly. And then with Infusionsoft specifically, and I don't know if they integrate with others, but it's called Plus This. And we've used it into our processes to automatically trigger text messages once people sign up for our program, to get them the training that they need to kind of go through to kind of give them the details of the next steps in the process. And we use it consistently to show up for our sales trainings and for webinars that we do. That are a key part of sort of our top of funnel awareness. We have kind of text messaging built into those to remind people to show up and so forth. We're also using it as part of Calendly, which is our appointment booking, automatic appointment booking that we use for our sales team, and also for kind of our onboarding. And it is incredibly valuable. People put in their phone number whenever they use that link to book a call with myself or someone else to learn more about our programs for sales, and it sends them text reminders ahead of. And also it texts them links to videos, a very critical video that we have on our website that explains all of our processes start to finish that we ask everybody watch ahead of time. It's at outsourceaccess.com/process. You can see how we do it. And it's been very, very helpful. So I know it's not directly answering. I don't have a lot of depth in specific softwares being used specifically for e-commerce, but it's been very powerful in the ways that I just shared with you. And check out Twilio and Textedly. Another great platform to look at when you're looking to compare softwares is G2 Crowd, capital G, the number 2, crowd.com. Does a great job of comparing and contrasting different software platforms out there. So if you go on there, I'm quite sure it has this whole matrix and shows you different ones and where ones are better on quality or on pricing or what have you, or feature sets that are most important to you. Next question is from Mark McDowell. Question is, how important are business cards today, and what things should I be sure to include, and is design that important? Background: I'm looking to update my business card. Currently have a template type card. I like it, but I want something different. Are business cards really as important of a tool as they used to be? What kind of things can I include on the card to really make them stand out? And is the investment worth it? So market, I think a lot of people are asking themselves these questions when they go to run another print of business cards, and certainly during the COVID era, they're probably collecting dust more than ever without being in person. But this is one that really does speak to the industry. So if we're kind of thinking sort of past COVID and kind of we're back to somewhat more business as usual, but is it still a standard kind of in the industry? I mean, I know service-based businesses. I know kind of what you mentioned, you're in commercial and personal insurance. It's still customary, right? And so I think probably whether someone ends up using it or referencing it, but if you're doing a lot of person meetings and people coming into your office, when you get back to doing that, it's standard and customary, and it's just a sign of professionalism that's customary for your industry as well. That's the other question I ask: is it something that is normal and standard in your industry? Will you look unprofessional if you don't? So I think it sounds like for yours it's something that you need to probably maintain. And some people still, you got individuals if you're doing more personal sales, individually, you've got stay-at-home moms and dads that aren't on computers all day long and not an email and not, in LinkedIn and so forth. And so that physical business card is going to be a reference point. And just a couple things I'll share on this. Something I've been getting a lot of Facebook ads on, and it's actually a cool, it's a business card you can get that actually will do digital transfer of your information to somebody's phone. It's called vice.co. So it's kind of weird. It's capital. It's V, the number one, CE.co. So V as in Victor, the number one, CE.co. You can go check it out. I've been seeing tons of ads on it, but it basically, you can get a physical card that comes to you, and it's set up so that you can actually bump it to someone's phone and it'll transfer your information over. So just another kind of innovative thing to kind of look at there. A couple other reference points I'll share. There's a guy named John Rulin that came and spoke for one of our organizations, and he wrote a book called Giftology. He's all about innovative, disruptive ways of presenting yourself and engaging. And he's actually got steel business cards. Very memorable, very different, and he even has steel stationery. So he has a printed up in thin steel sheets. And I got a follow-up piece that he sent to us as kind of showing sort of his model, and open it up out of the envelope, and there's a steel piece of stationery that he wrote kind of a marker pen on top of. Very disruptive, very different, stood out in my mind. I'm obviously referencing it now. So that's maybe something is you could get a different type of material. And again, it depends. How many are you giving out? How many clients are you meeting with? What's your cost? Does it help give a little bit more memorability to help with your conversion rate? Maybe worth it. But if you just Google steel or aluminum business card, you can find the ones that do that. A couple of other elements if you're doing something to stand out, aside from the material, but curvature on the edges and the corners. Some people are going with these small, like square ones, so that it stands out, and kind of a whole stack of business cards people have. If yours is a little bit different size. And then definitely make them functional. I had business cards when I was, carrying them more consistently and having to meet face to face, is having a call to action, URL. I have a QR code, something that's, on the back that someone can go to a URL, go to a website and get some kind of free content, or to go through, maybe an initial insurance audit, that they go to that URL, they'll be able to kind of go through an initial free audit and assessment. But make it be worthwhile. That's not just your information on there, but something of value that they can go to a URL and take a free assessment, get a free download, maybe even use a phrase of like, hey, this is your entry ticket to a free download and get a chance to win a $50 Amazon gift card. I mean, you don't want to sound too cheesy, but just brainstorm around that. What can you offer that people could go to a simple URL on the back of it or scan a QR code and get something of value, so that it becomes a functional piece that gets them into a lead sequence. You're capturing their email, putting them into a nurture sequence or something. For example, like we have a URL, outsourceaccess.com/help. And so during COVID, we kind of create a free guide, the small business survival guide during COVID. So, if I had a business card and was giving it out, I'd be putting that on the back and say, hey, great to meet you. Here's my contact. You flip it over. Actually, if you get a chance, pop over to this URL or scan the QR code. You can go download a free guide that we put together. So it's a great way to make the business card work for you, be actionable, and get them into a nurture sequence. Next question is from Heather Brockman. She asks, how do you know what questions to ask when vetting someone to perform an outsourced tasks you are not familiar with? Background, I'm looking to outsource my Shopify store for my grooming company, but know nothing about this area. I'm wondering where to find the best person for the job, and also what is the best way to pay someone for a position like this. So very important to do vetting, especially when you're having someone going to be engaging in a platform like your Shopify or e-commerce store. It's going to be touching some sensitive information. It's very critical, for your business. And we do this in our discovery, process, like with, we bring on clients. That's something that we do. We kind of do a discovery, deep dive assessment, figure out what their needs are, to be able to do that great kind of matching. So we kind of have a lot of experience in doing this. The first thing I would say to do, in getting this framed up again, is lay the right foundation, right? Before you go, post or look for someone to do this, because in our business we have to deal with this quite a bit. but really put on paper and frame up what you want done and why. Even if it's not all the technical elements, because you don't maybe know all the technology or ins and out detail of it, but really just frame out and articulate what you want. It's going to help tremendously for you to do that brain dump exercise, because a lot of people begin this and they really don't know what they want or clarity around the objectives they're trying to accomplish. So again, you don't know the in and out technical aspects of Shopify, but what are you wanting, done? What is your objective? And this is going to outline, ultimately translate into metrics and things that will help you hold them accountable once you do kind of engage. So do the homework and effort on your side to get that framed up clearly. So when you share this, it will help you attract the better talent too when they see that you're a good communicator and being thorough. And that goes to my other comment about using screencasting. Use screencast-o-matic.com or Loom, use loom.com, that lets you do screencast recordings and explanations. Once you kind of get that write-up done, pull up screencasting and do a screencast recording. Record your screen, your voice, your mouse, walk through your current site, maybe have some sites up on multiple tabs you can pop to that you like, that you're looking for. It'll help supplement your write-up and give a lot more clarity about what your needs are. And secondly, again, it will help you attract the better talent, because there's a ton of these outsourced resources that are getting a ton of demand and interest, and they only want to work with people that know how to work with virtual workers, and because it impacts them if you get them on one of these job platforms like a Fiverr or an Upwork or a gig economy. Like in our business, when people hire a VA with us, we have over 200 specialized people supporting our VAs that do all this kind of stuff as well, that we've already pre-vetted. So we go through this process ourselves to vet people, to bring them to the table to be a part of our business as part of our specialized talent team. But doing screencasting in a good write-up will help you attract the better talent in the process. And just put it out there and just use some common sense. Whenever you do a posting or you're inquiring about a resource to get this done, and by the way, reach out to me. I've got some direct relationships maybe that could be helpful with you on the Shopify piece of it. But as I said, this is kind of what we use to vet 200 people that are doing specialized function work on our talent, on our team. Look at their profile, look at how they performed on their portfolio. How thorough is it? Have they described what they do really well? Is there a good background on their company? Are you looking, ideally, if you could find a small company versus purely an individual, but if it's an individual, what's their portfolio quality? How do they describe their work? Do they have any references available that you can maybe ask they could share with you? And ask for a use case that's very similar to yours, maybe your industry. How is their communication? That's another big thing when we're posting and vetting people as part of our specialized talent team. Are they good communicators? Because when you're working virtual, that's everything. Are they quick to respond? Are they thorough? Do they have attention to detail in their communications? And what's the frequency? Do they say they're going to be back tomorrow and it's 3 days later? I'd always recommend to be project-based versus hourly, right? So instead of someone saying, yeah, this is my hourly rate, is get a project-based cost to accomplish what you want. Again, that's why it's important to do that write-up. And then pricing, how comparable, are they? And compare to, the peers, make sure they really out there in terms of pricing. And if so, is that justified with their background and their skill? So a couple of key things to look at when you're kind of going down that path, and do the right groundwork and some of the tactical things to execute it properly. Next question is from Abraham Marcos. How do I come up with my SOPs, my standard operating procedures? Because I don't have any besides in our heads as to how we do things, and would really like to make things easier for all of us. I feel this would give us the clarity to keep growing and teach how we do things as a team. I have an air conditioning and heating service business in the Los Angeles, Hollywood, San Fernando Valley. Thank you in advance. So actually got quite a bit of experience specifically in your industry. One of my good entrepreneur colleagues has actually quadrupled his business in the commercial refrigeration business, somewhat similar, by standardizing things and taught him how to use the whole world of outsourcing and virtual assistants. And funny enough, this is an industry where you wouldn't think that this would be applicable, but he's got 15 VAs now that run all the back-end logistics, coordination, inventory management, warehousing, client communication. It's amazing how much can be used in outsourcing. But the first thing is just to do a really good brain dump. You said it's all in your head, the current SAPs. You got to get it out on paper. Allocate some dedicated time with you and your staff. and just define all the SOP buckets first, right? If it's, recruiting and HR and bringing on techs, is it, the sales process? Is it the quoting process? But define the buckets of what are your SOPs first, kind of what buckets they fall in, and you can kind of focus on each bucket at a time. And a great way is to do value stream mapping. If you Google that, you can see a bunch of examples of it. But it basically requires you to kind of map your process from start to finish, from when someone first learns about you as a client and kind of how they go through that whole journey. And also, if you want to do it on the HR side, from when a potential tech learns about you and how do you take them through onboarding and ultimately, embracing into your business. But literally itemizing, kind of going through every single micro step in that process. And by doing that, it will smoke out what are the minutiae and the details and things that you need to kind of provide protocols and processes around. So again, if you're going to do this right, it takes a decent amount of homework to get it outlined, do a brain dump, and get your team involved. And just do a whiteboard session, if nothing else. Just kind of do a whiteboard, start map it out step by step, and then piece that off and maybe assign to your team, each person to, if nothing else, start off with bullet points. What are those steps and processes? And then when you get ready to actually, kind of document it, there's just a ton of great tools. Trainual is a fantastic tool. I know Sean, kind of talks about. We use it with a ton of our clients as well. That helps as a web-based platform to kind of document your processes, and using screencasting. If anybody's heard me reference and talk about this, I'm a huge fan of it. Screencast-O-Matic or useloom.com that allows you to do screen recordings. So the one I mentioned to you before that's been growing substantially, they have screencast recordings of everything. When they have an outsourced VA or a resource plug in and do things, they have a recording that they watch that they have on file. Here's how you go log into the system. Here's how you click on this. Here's how you click on that. And you can do everything because it records your screen, your voice, and your mouse. You can kind of walk through all of it right there on the screen with them. So once you're ready to actually document, there's some really good tools that help in that process. But good luck with it, and process will set you free. It's worth doing. Just take the time and be disciplined about getting it executed. Name of submitter is Paulina Beck. No Paulina well. Question is, how do you analyze job applicants for a job posting to see which you will interview? Business description, I just posted for a full charge accountant to join my team. The posting went live a few hours ago, and I have already 4 people that applied. I want to know how to review their applications and see which ones are worth having an interview with. And from there, which ones I will give a technical interview. So hi, Paulina. I said I mentioned her. I guess we relatively new acquainted. We're actually working with her and provide a VA for her in her company. So I got a chance to learn a little bit more about her business and where she's going. So good luck on your growth, Paulina. And she's seen our processes kind of in thorough and in detail. So I'll be speaking to some things, Paulina, you're actually have observed and experienced directly, but hopefully be helpful for others. First of all, you're just absolutely doing the right thing by making sure you're vetting appropriately. I'm a fanatic of Jim Collins, and we actually kind of have some of his takeaways from his key books as mantras in our business. And in Good to Great, one of in his whole philosophy, and I highly recommend if you go to Jim Collins' website, jimcollins.com, I think, and if you go click on concepts and you watch the video right there at the top, he summarizes all the key takeaways of all his business books in one place, and it is phenomenal. And it is the roadmap I'm using to grow and build our company. And he puts it in different buckets, the principles from the different books, and he kind of places them in these 3 buckets that summarizes it. And the first one is disciplined people with disciplined thought and disciplined actions. And it starts with disciplined people, right seats. First who, then what. And all the stories that he shares from all the different companies, that was one of the first things they did is they brought on just good people. Some companies didn't even know what direction they were going yet. You wouldn't believe companies like Hewlett-Packard, didn't even know what business they were going to be in. And, the leaders of that company focused on getting the right people first, then driving the bus. So just applaud you and really wanted to put a focus on that. First, and I'll speak to, again, our experience because we're going through, 100 plus candidates a month that we're vetting because we have a very small percentage that meet our criteria as virtual assistants to match with clients. But using some automation and tools to do the initial screening and heavy lifting. I don't know what you're using. Maybe you're already using something, but using Calendly for automatic, booking for, with you for calls, using tools. There's a tool called Hierology that we're actually evaluating right now. Trainual, which another one I know has been mentioned a lot, they can kind of automate. But, we have over 15 assessments that we're having everybody take, and it just lets us set a high bar right from the beginning. And when we post job, opportunities, we have all the front end of it automated, right? And we set a high bar so that we're only getting people that we know are going through the process and being committed. So, that'll help. I mean, you don't want to not have opportunities with people, but if people are really passionate and want to work for you, and be a full-time part of your team, you want to set a high bar, and, it allows you to put a lot more posts out there, right? Because you don't get anxiety about having to go through so many resumes if you can put those assessments. So those that do come through, are going to be, a good fit. In the posting, ask your request for a cover letter, right? And those that don't even submit that, they didn't even read it. Maybe a video as well if you'd like, and if they're okay, sharing and who they are and why they're a fit. As you've seen, kind of in our postings when we present candidates to our clients for VAs, we ask that they shoot a video of themselves, showcasing themselves and their background, doing assessments. I don't know if you're already kind of doing some assessments, but you've seen with us using DISC, Colby assessments. Culture Index is one that we're about to kind of roll out and start using, which we're really excited about. I mentioned the tech platforms using our Hierology, Trainual, and even if you want to do something super simple to start, just do Google Forms. That's something we use in our business. Is when we post and people are interested in a job on our Facebook ads, they have to fill out a Google form that has kind of those initial questions. And something we do as an additional layer, and you can either do it at the front end or after the first round of interviews, is we ask them to watch a video that I did showcasing our mission and our core values. It was a part of our process of implementing EOS traction into our business. So I got a video, and I'll post and share it in the group here as well, where I share our vision and our core values, and I give examples of each, and we ask them to watch that ahead of time and come to that interview prepared to share examples of how they've demonstrated some of our core values. And for us, they spell great, actually from good to great, because I'm such a fan of that philosophy: gratitude, relationship-driven, ever-long commitment to learning, attention to detail, and thoughtful communication. And so, again, it just sets a bar. And if you don't want to do that in the beginning, would definitely recommend still you do a part of it. If you haven't done your mission and core values by chance and done a video, it's a great part of the process. And you're probably doing this, but in interviews as well, I like doing a lot of scenario-based interviews, case studies, give examples. How would you handle, these different scenarios and put them in challenging situations and see what kind of questions that they ask. How would they navigate things, specifically things that they're going to deal with in that role. Because again, it's about character and chemistry that you're looking for. Back to the first who, then what philosophy. All right, next question is from Robin Turpin. When starting a business, do you think it is necessary to have a social media presence? Thank you. Business description, in-person interactions, or background question. In-person interactions are much more comfortable for me. And looks like Robin is an artist, and she does moments of calm through her oil paintings of sunsets. I'm sure those are very valuable right now for everybody to have some peaceful things to look at visually during this time. So the simple answer is yes, absolutely. And particularly when you are in a visual art, visual product business like yours, you have an incredible asset to work with. I could spend hours talking on this topic, but to share a couple of key points is, social media, aside from what you share there and use it to generate leads, which I'll talk about, is that buyers use it for validation. Is like, do you have a social presence? And as our the younger generation gets older and keeps becoming a part of the main market, it's just standard. If you don't have a Facebook page or a Twitter page or an Instagram, you're not even on the radar, for them. So that's the place that they're going to go to look at your content. It's like, yeah, you got a website, but then they want to go look at social and where are you posting? What is content? What are people saying? So buyers are using it for validation, that you won't even get a potential consideration if you don't have it. So important from that perspective. And certainly it is a great way of getting visibility out there in the market and generating leads. Again, with being an artist and having some of the best content, you should get a ton of engagement and just a lot of creative ways you could post and ask for comments and hold contests and even use your followers to kind of drive the creative process, and ask people to share their own pictures of sunsets, that they've got. And maybe you pick, say, hold a contest and, hey, submit your best sunset photo, and I'll pick one and have a winner. It's just a way to drive engagement, interaction. And a lot of this stuff is, it's great for a virtual assistant resource, whether you do try and post for a part-time, one of the job platforms, or, we're happy to consider if you're looking for a full-time, but VAs can do all that kind of back end. And it's easy to do. It's just, there's a lot of, as far as like the skill required, it's not super complicated, but there is a lot of moving parts. Just a couple of tools I'd recommend if you want to start doing it some more yourself is using Canva.com. If you're not familiar, it allows you to do quick graphics and maybe put templates. I would always recommend with your post is having something there that identifies your website, that's on there. And then you can use a tool like Buffer.com or Hootsuite that you can connect to all your social channels, and with one button it'll push to all your social channels. So you're not having to go and post on all of them all the time. So you can automate the posting. So it's kind of an initial way that you can do. And we actually just released a digital product called Maximize My Virtual Assistant. And so it's for people that either have an existing VA and they just want them to get them the training that we provide to our training. They're not in a place to want to hire a full-time VA. But if you go to maxmyva.com, you can check that out. And so if you ever want to just look at it yourself for your own use, if you're doing it directly or hiring a part-time VA, you can see all the video training that we do there. And we do training on social media posting and Canva and so forth. It's the exact training we provide to our VAs when they match with clients. Next question is from Rohit Gupta. I have a business idea and have done some research. Now I'm not sure which direction to go into. Background of the question: I'm thinking of designing the glove, as I have done research to cover the basics, but not sure if this is my next step. So I'm guessing this is some kind of specific type of glove technology. And Rohit, it's a very, very open-ended question. There's a million things I could share with you here, but just to kind of brain dump, if I was in your place and I was launching a new product and knowing what I know now, what are some of the things I would be doing to validate the market and next steps? So first thing is just, who are all the competitors out there? You can post on, a Fiverr and Upwork and these gig economy platforms and say, hey, I want you to do a data scrape and get me a list of all the competitors in this space. And whatever it is for your glove technology, get a list of all of them. So you can get a list and ask them to put in a spreadsheet the websites of all these different companies that are in that space or similar to it. So you can see how their branding, their positioning, their copy for their websites, how they're describing what they do. Then I can't impress enough about doing a financial model on this. You can do some of this stuff in parallel, but just to confirm the economics. A lot of entrepreneurs, they get in love with the idea of building and growing a company, and they fall in love with the product and concept, but don't take time to really map out the economics. So do a financial model, in Excel. If you Google, there's a ton of templates. If you don't want to build your own out there, you can start. But pro forma financial model, you can kind of Google. But just see how this looks, and put in, particularly cash flow, by month, January, February, March. What are the outlays? How much cash is it going to kind of require? And then once you start doing selling, what are you selling? What are the unit costs? I did a lot of product-based businesses. We had a company we had sold in 18 countries internationally and had a bunch of international supply chain logistics. And you got to deal with things like distribution, third-party fulfillment. Are you going to sell direct to consumer? Are you going to sell to distribution facilities? But you got to highly recommend getting the economics shaped up, because that'll drive the reality of what you've got to do to make this be successful if you haven't done that. I don't know if you're looking at like Alibaba.com for manufacturing, if you're looking to source directly, but that's a great place to check out if you haven't, Alibaba.com for it. Another thing is just validating the market of is there a demand? And I love going and doing just a Survey Monkey or a Google form and just going into a bunch of Facebook groups that I know have tons of people that are relevant and say, hey, looking at launch a product, if you could just answer this brief survey, keep it simple so that they're just checking some boxes about their feedback. And say, by the way, as a thank you, I'll give you, a set free, if we end up launching, the product. And I've done that a number of times, and it's amazing how many people are willing to share, particularly with so much time online right now. And if you post in entrepreneur groups, they're very willing to kind of help out other entrepreneurs. It's a great way to get market research and analysis done. when you look to kind of stepping into the branding, if you're going to move forward on it, a great low-cost way to get crowdsourced knowledge is 48hourlogo.com. You can go post a contest, and you have people all over the world. You briefly describe what the product is, the concept, and you'll get designs. When I launched Outsource Access, I used it, and I got over, I think, 300 designs in like 7 days. It holds a global contest, and you get designs from people all over the world, so different backgrounds, different cultures. And every time I've done this several times now, I end up getting a design back that was completely different than what I thought initially because someone else brought an idea. So it's a way to kind of crowdsource the heavy lifting of the creative process. And you can use those same gig economy platforms for getting your website done, getting sales plans, business plans. If you go on Fiverr and type on business plans, there's a guy that does nothing but business plans. I think he charges a couple $100. So just getting a lot of the foundation, getting the economics built out, the financial model, just to really first validate it first before you go deep down and spend time and money and so forth. Is there a fit? A lot of people just want to turn a blind eye and say, I don't know if there's competitors. And they put all this time and effort and find out that there is a direct one that has a lot more horsepower behind them that they're never going to get market share if they launched. So just recommend kind of doing that baseline kind of homework. Next question is from Christopher Joseph. Question is a pre-launch strategy recommended for a software product still in development? And do you have any tips or resources to better learn how to create a proper pre-launch strategy? Business description, I'm currently in alpha testing with a small group of target customers for my software tool for content creators and streamers. I was recommended by my CTO to do a pre-launch to build hype, continue gauging interest, and expand our email list. She says we could do this pre-launch before the product is finalized. We're thinking along the lines of a coming soon page. Enter your email to stay in the know. I'd like to know your thoughts on how we and when a pre-launch strategy should be executed. Thank you in advance. A lot of things to unpack there related to a product launch. So I'll go through a couple different answers I would suggest and concur with a lot of your thinking there and some other creative ways you can further expand on it. Is absolutely. I would first, as you're kind of launching this, one thing is just seeing, again, and it sounds like you've maybe validated the product and know the market's there. Maybe you're super clear on all the competitors and so forth. But if you haven't, first of all, I would just recommend just revisiting that, posting on a Fiverr or an Upwork, asking for a data scrape of all the competitors that are in this space, see what they're doing, see what their websites look like, get their, crowdsource it. You can get it for, less than $10. I was able to data scrape and get a list of, I think 50 or 60, competitors in a market, but it just gets it all in your fingertips quickly. So just assuming you validated the market and done all that, and done financial models and so forth. Yes, a pre-launch is absolutely, fantastic. It creates excitement, creates interest. There's no commitment, from the individual aside from just providing their email address. You're selling the sizzle versus the steak. Make sure there's a great image, key point takeaways, simple, direct to the point. And what's the WIFM? What's in it for them, right? Is to put in their email. Maybe they're getting a free guide, a free download, in addition to being on the list to be notified when it launches. For an example, and even after that, what is the nurture content that you're giving to them afterwards? Once they do opt in, what does that look like? Have you architected that specific messaging? If you go to outsourceaccess.com/help, you will see a landing page for a download we created during COVID that's been really powerful for us. It's the business owner survival guide during COVID. People put in their email address. It's super simple. Highly recommend using just a very easy way for people to submit. Don't ask for too much information. You can always ask for that later once you kind of earn the right to be in their inbox. But you'll see if you go there, you can put in your email, you'll see we have a very intentional 25 part nurture sequence in every couple of days that specifically is, a video, talking about your brand, maybe the owners can talk about who you are, what you're about, getting them connected to your social channels as part of that drip sequence, but get some kind of specific intentionally structured content to earn the right to stay in their inbox and keep them engaged and kind of bring them in the journey with you, the countdown. Maybe you have a countdown number of days. You can share the number of days left each week, but create excitement around it, make them feel they're a part of the journey going forward. All right, next question is from Bob Guiguer. Question is, do I use one LLC for everything or have separate LLCs for different products or services? Background of the question: I'm about to launch my company and I need to file my LLC. However, I anticipate I will have at least one or two other unrelated products or companies that I will test this year. Should I file as a parent company LLC? At what point in the business development cycle should an LLC be filed? So about it, filing for an entity, I mean, if you use a platform like a LegalZoom, .com, and some of those, it can be done relatively, low cost, but definitely you want to make sure you got validation, of the product and everything about your plan before you kind of go down that side. Because once you do that, there's costs involved with setting it up, maintaining it, and you got to file the taxes for it with the CPA and so forth. So assuming you're at that place and you kind of got your product validated and you're ready to move ahead with it, I would definitely crawl, walk, run in the number of entity setups. And is the juice worth the squeeze? And from somebody who has 4 different entities myself, they can get complicated and then get costly for setup, filing, taxes, the relationships between them. I'm not an attorney or a CPA, legally but I'll just share from my experience for what it's worth on it. Because it can be worthwhile. It can be worthwhile to do it, but it's got to make sense financially with what you're generating revenue-wise and what you're trying to protect, legally and financially. So I would recommend set up your main LLC, and again, talk with your CPA on it. Do you want to be, taxed typically you want to be taxed as an S corp, which is kind of important on how you kind of structure it. Lets it flow through to you and some different ways you can structure the tax strategy. And you can do unrelated work. I mean, I know you mentioned you've got some other unrelated things you're doing. Is you can, still maybe do some preliminary testing on those, under the R&D, category. And once you have proofs of concept and, validated it in, it's worth it in terms of intellectual property, or traction, then it can maybe make sense to set it up for exit purposes. And you can always kind of call, the dollars and money. And again, not a CPA and attorney, want to validate, but from my experience, I believe what we've done is you can always kind of use those dollars as a loan to that future company. So if you spent, say, $5,000 on testing and validating a product, if you launched another LLC, that LLC could be paid back. Your original company could be paid back from that LLC, basically as a loan that it made to that for doing that work, and then kind of ultimately make it whole and have it stand on its own. So you can crawl, walk, run with it, and again, get some good legal and CPA advice. I'm sure there's some great ones here in the AO, kind of community. But just from my experience, for me, I have one, general entity, that's kind of a management firm, and I have, 2 LLCs and a Filipino corporation. So I have an LLC I have in that kind of manages our contracts, and I have a Filipino kind of corporation, a relationship between the 2 of those, and I have a holding company that owns, has ownership of both of those, and then I have a separate entity that's kind of a management firm, which is, your initial LLC could potentially turn into that, where you're providing, services and programs and offerings to those other entities and can bill those entities, for it. So again, this could be a very long, extended conversation, and I myself, in going through this path, I've got a bunch of different workflows to kind of get our final visual. And it's really good to kind of get like a visual map if you want to do something in PowerPoint. Just kind of put, general little workflow. What's the relationship between the entities and what you're trying to accomplish? And as you grow in complexity, that will get more sophisticated and will require more legal documentation, more CPAs, and more kind of financial management and tax strategy as you move forward. And once it becomes kind of worthwhile. But if you've got an amazing product, you think is an incredible breakthrough in terms of IP and trademarks and so forth, it's worth going ahead and getting that set up and let that LLC hold that IP and those trademarks, which is kind of that next step in the process. So hopefully this has been helpful. Again, sorry, I've got a little congestion here, so been a little slow on kind of responses here today. But hopefully been helpful in sharing different experiences from different perspectives. Great questions from everybody, what they're thinking, and hopefully be some good case studies. And I'll drop in a link after my post here to some of the resources and tools that I mentioned during the questions that I answered. So again, Brad Stevens, founder and CEO of Outsource Access. You can always check us out at outsourceaccess.com. And if you're interested in exploring the whole world of outsourcing and virtual assistants, you can go to Get a Virtual Assistant and see a video where I describe our whole process. And we offer a discount for anybody in the OA community that ever wants to kind of go through the process. And we have a fully refundable, initial fee to go through. just so we can make sure it's a fit for both sides if you ever want to just test out the journey. So if you ever want, you can email me at brad@outsourceaccess.com. And until next time, hope you have a great success with your ventures, and take care. Hey, for some reason, it's not letting me close out here, so hopefully this is going to work. Not sure what's going on. Well, I'm going to X out and hopefully save my